Okay, we are recording. Hi, John. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today because I've always respected you and your content and your leadership abilities. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how everything's going right now with what we got in the world today?
Yeah, well, first, thank you very much for inviting me to be on this. I'm honored and I really appreciate it. Uh, so, I'm the managing partner of Peak Demand. We are an executive search and really kind of talent advisory firm focused specifically in renewable energy. So, we help solar companies scale their teams, hire and retain great human capital. But for us, I mean, I think everybody is just getting used to the new dynamics of
Mhm.
social distancing and working from home. I had to give myself a coronavirus haircut last night because I couldn't look anymore without shaggy it was. So,
Oh, man.
everybody's just kind of getting used to what's happening now.
Yeah. So how is your team and how are you and family? Everybody healthy and happy and okay right now so far?
Fortunately, yes, we had
Good.
what's going on, and I guess we're lucky we have toilet paper and all the other stuff. Hopefully, that nonsense is getting over with. But everybody's been good. And in fact, we're again just trying to get used to it. We have a relatively small team, and our overhead's low, and people have been used to working from home already. But it's a whole different dynamic when not only are you trying to work from home, but my son's got a band practice right now across a Zoom conference. So I
Mhm.
had to set up his laptop and I had to leave the house to do this, or you would have heard trombones and the whole band in the background today. So just trying to get everybody used to the new reality.
Yeah, they call it homeschooling or whatever that is right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
That I mean, and that's the reality of the what's going on today. So in the solar industry or even the recruiting industry, what have you seen? Have you seen any shifts or is it
It's all changing so fast. I mean, we went from what was the lowest unemployment for the longest period of time ever to last week. I think the final numbers were 3.5 or 3.2 million people that applied for unemployment. So to go from one end of the spectrum to the other essentially overnight has been brutal for people. And then,
yeah,
of course, a lot of that is restaurants and small businesses and hospitality and retail. And so it affects a whole lot of people that frankly, probably are in the worst possible position to be affected by this. But from in our business and the companies and the individuals we work with, we certainly have seen a decrease in hiring. A lot of individuals and organizations have put things on pause. I was talking to someone this morning that runs a very large solar development and construction company, and they are not laying anybody off, but in certain areas they're able to move forward with construction. In other areas, the cities and the local jurisdictions and even some of like the school districts and other site owners don't want people on site. So they're trying to figure out where can we actually build these projects? When are we going to be able to build the other ones? And the challenge that he's going to have is that while a lot of stuff's on pause right now, as soon as things open up again and we go back to work, they're going to have to go from 0 to 100 overnight, and we're then going to be understaffed pretty dramatically.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know somebody who told me that they were getting solar panels scheduled to be put on their house last week. And I don't know if they went through with it or, because people are just nervous. Don't be too close,
Luckily in California, they've deemed solar as an essential service. So most of these
Okay.
companies can still operate and they can go out and do an install. But of course, if the homeowner is concerned and doesn't want people coming in, then there's no work to do.
Then that is what it is. Yeah. Um, so you mentioned that this particular company is not doing layoffs. You are probably the type of person who's on the front lines getting those phone calls from people telling you their real situation. We have been kind of curious about layoffs and how it's affecting people. And so, like, what advice would you give to people who have been calling probably, or have even been getting those calls? But what advice would you give to people who have been laid off in this time?
it's tough. There's no two ways about it. First off, get in there and apply for unemployment. They're trying to uh, get people on really, really fast. The system's overwhelmed, though. They can't respond to people fast enough. Hopefully, our government does their job and passes that stimulus bill today that they've been waiting 3-4 days for. There's going to be a lot of stuff to help people out in there as well. And it's going to be tough because as I mentioned, we went from super low unemployment now to a lot of people unemployed. But you have to work your networks first and foremost. Reach out to your former supervisor or somebody else in your organization and ask them to write you a letter of recommendation. That's actually super powerful. Instead of having to have every potential new employer reach out to your former boss, if you can just bring that letter with you right away, that helps out a lot, makes it much, much easier. But then again, rekindle your network. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and looks good. Click that little button that says open to new opportunities so recruiters can find you, and just let everybody know that you're on the market and start trying to find the next thing. And be patient. Unfortunately, it might be a couple of months in this environment. Nobody knows how long we're going to be in shelter in place or how soon the economy is going to start rolling again. And it might take a little while.
Yeah. That is a really good point. The patience aspect is probably one of the hardest for a lot of us because we're all living in the unknown right now, and I guess we just have to get comfortable in that space. So you mentioned LinkedIn and a few things, and it just seems like this is becoming like the time for creativity, the time for content, the time for creating like your own personal brand and that sort of thing. Are you putting out your own more content now? Are you suggesting that for a lot of people?
We're trying to, but of course, it's the issue of like, what do you go out and say? You can talk about, hey, we're working from home now, and I think we've been putting some stuff on our social media about video interviewing tips. How do you keep moving forward in a process when you can't have face-to-face interviews? We actually know of people that are at the final step of the interview process and they're meeting at the grocery store so that they can meet face-to-face.
Wow.
So people are just trying to figure out how to do this stuff. So we're trying to put some content around that. But from a mass messaging perspective, I'm not sure that it's the most appropriate thing to be in a hardcore sales mode. Obviously, everybody's got to generate revenue. We all have to try to do what we can to keep the doors open, the economy moving. But I think you have to do it with empathy and understanding where people are and their situation, and really try to, whatever you're doing, whether it's actually making sales calls, sending out emails, or creating video content, make sure that it's something relevant and brings value to people, and you're not just bombarding them with things that are all about me, and you're really trying to do things for them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, really good perspective, and the humanity aspect of everything, for sure. Do you see a silver lining here for people? Like what's the upside of this shelter in place and extra time we're getting?
It's hard, right? I mean, hopefully the upside is that everybody stays reasonably healthy. We don't overrun the hospitals, and this doesn't become a huge deal. And we all look back and say, "Oh, that might have been a little bit of an overreaction." That would be the best case scenario. Other than that, I think that this is a time for organizations to figure out, are we okay with, and is there a way that we can operate with people working remotely? Do we need to have folks handcuffed to a desk and here to do a job, or can we start offering some additional flexibility? I also think that a lot of the candidates that we talk to that say they want to work from home and they want to have the ability to have all this flexibility, I've already talked to a handful of people that went, you know what? I don't want to work from home anymore. I need to be in an office. I'm sick of this work from home stuff. I want to have a nice place to go in. But it's going to be a mixed bag. And some people are better equipped to work from. I personally need to be in an office. Give me one day a week working from home, and that works okay for me. Any more than that, and I'm crawling up the walls. But I think this is going to be a good opportunity for organizations to kind of get lean, understand what are the core things they need to be doing. It's going to be a very painful process, but I think you're going to see a lot of positive things that happen 6 months down the line once this gets back going again. I think the biggest problem, like I mentioned, is that whenever this snaps back and people are able to go back to work, whether it's going out to the restaurant down the street or trying to staff and build up your construction team or whatever project you're working on, we're going to go from zero demand to probably almost full demand overnight when this thing all breaks loose. And how we can all catch back up is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. So it's interesting for me to hear you say that you are not in love with working from home. I actually didn't know what you would prefer, but with that being said, there's two sides of it. There's like the leadership side of working remote, and then there's also the employee side. So what have you noticed to be different as a leader, and what tips could you give people who are trying to navigate the remote world of the current situation?
From a leadership perspective, I think having trust in your team and your team having trust in you, it just shines right now. If you don't trust your people, I'm hearing of companies that are requiring their employees to have Zoom on all day long so they can see if they're actually sitting at their desk doing work or not. If you have to run your company that way, you're doing it wrong. Like, that's not okay. If you don't trust people, they're not empowered to figure out how to get their work done, then it's just all bad. So I think leaders in general have to figure out, what are you actually measuring? Are you measuring productivity? Are you measuring how much time somebody's sitting in a chair to determine if they're getting their job done? And then how do you set up those objectives and make sure that you're measuring the performance and things are getting completed and communicate effectively with your team? So I think you're going to see strong leaders come out of this better equipped and with teams that have more cohesiveness and more trust built in at the end of this. And you're going to see other organizations that have frankly treated their employees very, very poorly or have very poor leadership. And when things come back out and the economy starts moving again, you're going to see people leaving weak organizations and getting into some better situations if they have to. There was a guy that emailed me a couple of days ago, and I had put a little video out about, how is this whole process going to change the dynamics of companies allowing people to work from home?
Mm-hmm.
And the individual reached out. He said, hey, I don't want to send you a note on LinkedIn or comment publicly because I don't want my company to see this, but they're forcing all of us to come into work every single day. We're a quote unquote essential business in a construction world, but we've got a couple hundred people here in this office. I don't want to be around them. I want to work from home. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to work from home, but HR says it's company policy, so we can't. And it's just, you see people's true colors in a time like this. So employees that are going to put in the work, you're going to see them be maybe not as productive as they normally would be because everything's a little bit wonky right now. But you're going to separate the wheat from the chaff in these kind of situations and see who really shows up.
That is really good. That's really true. We're really seeing people's true colors, and I've been liking it in a lot of ways because I've been seeing a lot of good things come out of people, but that's also what I'm focusing on. I know that there's a lot of rough stuff too, You gotta,
I'm trying to limit the amount of time I spend reading the news and social media. It's just it's so easy to get yourself in a very negative mind space. And, we all have to keep grinding and moving the ball forward within our organizations because you can't stop the entire economy.
Yeah, well, at least we would hope not, so so do you believe that some people won't go back to the office?
It's another interesting question. I think it's going to vary wildly. I was talking to another senior executive for a major solar company yesterday and asked him that very question. Are you going to change your stance on people working remotely? And he said, listen, I think this actually made me go the other direction when I'm seeing how much disruption and how both some of my employees are having working from home. I think we need to keep people in the office and engaged and have everybody working together. Having everybody remote seems to be causing a lot of problems, at least in that organization. I don't know that you'll see any huge drastic changes. You might find some companies that say, we don't need a brick and mortar office space anymore. We can work just fine. But other organizations are going to feel differently. And there's people like me, I can work from home every once in a while, but it's kind of like having to go to the gym versus, working on the exercise machine you've got sitting in the living room that's turned into a clothes rack. Some people just need to get out of the house to have that break. But I do hope that this whole shift just allows organizations to have more flexibility for the people that want it. And obviously they have to make sure they're still getting their job done. But I think this will change some things.
Yeah. And, it's hard to work out on that machine that has the coat hangers on it when you keep thinking you got to put them away. And the same goes for work. You're like, out of the corner of your eye, you're like, the dishwasher needs to be emptied, or, like that's the reality.
And I find that, when I'm working from home, I'll wake up in the morning and get up early and I just log on to the computer. Before I know it, it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I haven't eaten yet today, or even gotten out of haven't put on real pants yet. Right? And so you got to get out of your gym shorts and get dressed, right? But the whole day just disappears, and you're like, oh, it's interesting. Some people love it. I know a lot of people that work really, really effectively from home and don't want to go to an office for anything. I'm just not wired that way.
Yeah. And I was just having the conversation about wearing like gym pants, but then like a blazer or something. I don't know if they're like Hawaiian pant outfit or whatever, but just stay comfortable, I guess. This is also a great time for people to be giving back. And I know that you're a caring individual. What are some thoughts that you have about how we can give back to the community right now?
It's tough because I was talking to another individual yesterday who runs a nonprofit up in Oregon, and nonprofits are getting crushed right now. Not only can they not serve the communities because some of them are sheltered in place, but donations are down, everything's down. So anything you can do is beneficial. And I think that you have to find areas that impact you and that you're interested in and reach out to those organizations. But I think more than anything right now, it's just being there for one another, checking in on people. Everybody starts to feel a little bit isolated when you're not seeing the folks you see on a regular basis. So, I've been trying to do the little things, just like reaching out to my buddies, setting up like Zoom happy hours and things like that, so we can at least have some interaction. Be kind to everybody. I mean, seeing some of the stuff going on in the grocery stores and just the day-to-day transactions people engage in, and just trying to not stress, be patient, be kind, all of that. But it is hard to do a lot of true charitable work because there's so much of it's not getting done right now.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I even heard about an opportunity locally, and that included, making sandwiches and stuff, and interested in it, but I'm like, okay, I've got to have those gloves or whatever, especially if I'm, bringing kids with you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw a thing through the SPCA yesterday. They were trying to get rid of dogs. Yeah,
just like that.
You want a dog? Because the SPCA is trying to foster home all these dogs. They have to have them all gone by Sunday, and I don't know why. I think they can't staff the shelter to keep the dogs in place.
Is that what it is?
All kinds of stuff going on out there.
I saw that too, actually. I was looking at that. I
already got 3 dogs. I was going to get another one, but I was like, they only want, apparently these are all dogs that need to be like individuals in a home and not be with other animals.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Oh, wow. That's really hard. Well, I'm sure people will step up. Let's hope so. Sorry. This is what working from home, there's always a surprise to something. So I'm just curious if you've had any quirky or interesting ways of staying connected right now.
No, nothing too extreme. We are doing a lot more conference calls and webinar calls like this, where we used to do phone calls. Now we're doing these back and forth. And at first I didn't really like it, but it is interesting. And I think we'll probably continue to utilize it when we're not together in the office in the same place, because just the connectivity you have, seeing each other's face and seeing what's going on, it's a lot more powerful than just talking on the phone.
Yeah. So that just made me think, what about staying productive? I've heard a few tips along the way. I know I'm hearing people saying I'm sleeping in more, I'm staying up later. Some people, everyone's routines are shattered.
Yeah.
So what do you do to stay productive? How do you balance that?
Yeah, and for me, it's very, very different, because there's one thing about being productive working from home, and there's a whole nother dynamic now of like having your kids home indefinitely and not going to school and managing that.
Oh
For
my
me,
gosh.
it's not so much the working from home piece that's challenging. It's how do you manage, the 14-year-old and the 12-year-old and get something done without them like living on Xbox all day.
Mhm.
So for me, I've been trying to get up earlier. Ideally, like I just mentioned, instead of like just rolling out of bed and going straight to the computer, actually, get ready for the day, eat your breakfast, get dressed like you would like you're going to work, and stay in the same routines and habits that you would have for a work day, and try
Yeah.
to protect your time. I end up taking like a break about every hour. Also, hey, because my teenage kids, for some reason, as soon as I start doing work, they would come up and keep bothering me. So I got to do up like 1 hour block at a time. Okay, what do you need? Did you get this done? Okay, great. Do your homework. I'll come back in an hour. So for me, it's trying to just manage my day in 1 hour time blocks. It works really, really well, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And so what we've been doing is we call them 9 at 9. So 9 a.m. we have a conference webinar like this. We talk about 9 things. The 3 things we accomplished yesterday, the 3 things that we're going to accomplish today, and then 3 things we need from each other. So that gives everybody a sense of, are we actually getting stuff done? Are we planned? And then we all need something from each other, whether it's even just, telling a story about whatever happened on the day yesterday. They got a vent because there's nobody else they can talk to. Just trying to keep things moving that way. And that's actually been very, very useful.
And that's with your team internally? Okay, I really like that. I'm sure like a lot of people might hear this and want to implement something similar.
I stole it from somebody else on the internet, so go ahead. Everybody can steal it from me too.
I was gonna ask. I said, did you come up with this yourself?
Yeah, no, you know me. I'm not that organized.
That's so funny. You were the person who taught me to do what I think you called them power hours.
Okay.
So, and I know I've shared that with a handful of people along the way too, and I definitely implement that myself. And working from home with the kid, I'll be like, okay, you have this list right now. You work on this list while I'm having my little power hour, and then we'll check in. So
Yeah,
I really
that's
like
the
that.
thing that maintaining my sanity at home, working from home right now.
Yeah,
Junks.
no, that's really great. And I don't know if everyone does that already, but if not, jump on that wagon. Have you seen extra time in your day?
Oh, well, so I used to commute about 45 minutes each way to the office. Now that we moved out to Folsom, it's like an 8-minute commute. So, I'm not saving a ton of commute time not going in, but I do feel like there's a lot more time in the day now work-wise. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because you're at home and you're not getting out of the house and it just feels like the days are longer. I'm not sure. But I do feel like I'm getting more time focused on work activities.
Oh, okay. So not necessarily are you getting to work on your fun projects at home. You look up and it's 8 o'clock and you're still at the desk.
Yeah, well, maybe not usually not that late, but for better or for worse. A lot of times when I put the laptop down and I go home, I might field some calls and do some other things when I get
Yeah.
home. But I don't usually light the laptop up and sit on the couch working late in the evenings. And I'm finding myself doing more of that stuff lately. And I think that's just what a lot of people talk about is very difficult working from home, is that you don't do a good job of separating home stuff from work stuff because they're just all combined. So I find myself being very guilty of just continuing to be engaged in work when I probably should be shutting it down.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. Well, I just want you to share with people how they can reach out to you or connect with you if they want to continue a conversation after
Yeah.
this?
So our website is just inpeakdemand.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We're out there everywhere. If there's anything we can do to help or talk through organizational strategies going through this time, and we're seeing, there is hiring going on in the market. It's easy to look at everything and 3 million people applying for unemployment and assume there's no jobs. It certainly is slowing down in terms of the number of new job opportunities we're seeing, but there very much are still companies hiring, and there's things going on in the market. And organizations have to grapple with, what does this look like for us? If we do have to let go of staff, how do we ensure that we do this in as good of a way as humanly possible, being compassionate for the people we're letting go? Outplacement services, sometimes maybe we can convert folks from being a full-time person on the payroll to maybe they still need that skill set part-time, and we can help transition some of those folks onto like an hourly contract role or something along those lines. So there's a lot of things we can do to try to help organizations navigate through this process. But I think maybe more importantly, for individuals that are finding themselves get caught up in this, happy to help anybody we can, even if they're not in renewables, if we can help talk about some strategies or things that might help them in their job search if they're affected by all of this. We've got some great resources on our website, and always happy to have conversations.
Great. Thank you for that. And I really appreciate you offering your expertise and knowledge with us, especially in this time. I think that you're in a good position to kind of help people with advice. Is there any last little message of hope you'd like to share with people? Because some of us are at home cozy, and then some people are really, really seeing it. So it's, in my opinion, good to keep in perspective that it is a rough time, even, maybe not for every single one of us, but someone we know or someone, a friend of a friend is being affected. And whether it be health-wise or the jobs, and what kind of message of hope would you share with everybody today?
Everybody is going to be impacted by this one way or another. No one's going to come out totally unscathed. So this is going to be a very difficult time for a lot of people. So I think more than anything, we need to remember just to keep your head up, stay positive. The way you react to a situation oftentimes is more important than the situation in and of itself. And keep a positive mindset. And again, be there for each other. Keep your networks active. Reach out to folks. And if you're in a position where you can help individuals during this time, make the time and make the effort to be there for one another. But this will pass, right? I mean, we don't know how long it's all going to be on self-quarantine. I heard the mayor of Los Angeles say that it might be all the way through June. I'm hoping it's not going to be that long, but this is going to be a setback, but it is going to be temporary, and the world will get back to normal eventually. So hang in there, and I think we'll all come back out the other side of this, hopefully in the near future.
Thank you. Yeah, we're riding this wave together. So yes. Well, thank you so much, Jon. I want to give you the rest of your day back.
Thank you very much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.